It went ahead to say that under the 1992 Constitution, however, it is the High Court which can declare a member of Parliament seat as vacant without providing any reasons.
So that's what transpired in Parliament earlier. Well, the majority side, meanwhile, did not have any challenge with the referral by the Speaker. According to the Majority Leader, Osei Emefa Apawu, their issue is rather with the Privileges Committee report coming to the floor of the House for a debate and a vote. They want the decision of the committee to be final.
Mr. Speaker, so for you to say that when the determination has been made by the Committee of Privileges, it should come here for voting, with the greatest respect, I disagree. That is not the intendment of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I'm fortified by the imperatives of Article 1771, 1125, and, of course, the one that you have I just quoted, 106.13. Mr. Speaker, that really should be what should commend itself to us. But we are all learning. We have heard you. The only disagreement that I have, Mr. Speaker, is submitting the report to Parliament for Parliament to vote on. That is not the intention of the Constitution. I thank you very much.
So that's what transpired in Parliament today. Well, the minority and the majority disagreed, or some actually agreed. The majority we've just heard agreed with the Speaker when that referral was made of these three MPs to the Privileges Committee. That's Sarah Adwoa-Safo, Kennedy Ohene-Ejeapong, and then also Henry Quartey, the Ayawaso Central MP. Well, the minority disagrees with the Speaker totally. You heard that open challenge between the Speaker and the Minority Whip. I have two exclusive interviews with, first, the Minority Chief Whip, Mutaka. In that interview, yet to be aired tonight on PM Express with Evans Mensah. Yesterday, he also spoke to the Majority Leader, Osei Emefa Apawu, specifically on the issues of Adwoa-Safo. It also came up in that interview with Mutaka Mubarak. I'll get to it shortly, but first, let me take you quickly to Parliament. Parker Wilson is on standby with some reaction from the majority side on this particular issue that transpired in Parliament today. Parker, what's the talk in Parliament?
Yeah, so Emefa, the minority is expecting the leadership to quickly put together the motion that will challenge the Speaker's ruling, because Mutaka Mubarak had already indicated or served notice that they're going to challenge it. They did not appreciate why the Speaker by himself would refer the conduct of the three MPs to the Privileges Committee. Now, with the majority, I have with me Honorable Samuel Akachia with me right now. Honorable, quickly, three of your colleagues I have been referred, but just let me understand. If the matter is before the House, would they have the opportunity to participate in the voting decision, just for clarity?
I do not think so. I do not see how anybody that they are taking a decision on to have a say in the decision making. You need to abstain yourself from the voting, and then the rest of them will vote on your matter. You can't be a judge in your own cause.
But we're referring them to the Privileges Committee. Did the Speaker get it right? Because Muntaka says it was absolutely inaccurate and incorrect for him to have done that.
I disagree with Honorable Muntaka, with the greatest of respect. You see, I do not see why they say in a court of law that the law is in the bosom of the judge. In a similar vein, the rules of the court, of the Constitution, is in the bosom of the Speaker, the referee of the House. And if you say that the referee of the House cannot prompt the House on the constitutional matter, then I'm afraid we are in a cemetery. You understand? So if the Speaker sees something which is an infraction of the Constitution or the rules, he on his own motion, he can prompt the House that, look, if you pay regard to Article 97C, it is obvious that some members of the House have centered themselves for 15 days. Unfortunately, they didn't seek my approval. Right. So that approval is with them. So if the approval is, we will be able to determine as to whether or not this matter is referable to the Privilege Committee or not. But that's what it is.
But finally, do you back the referral to the Privilege Committee of these three MPs, your colleagues, who you say will not partake in the vote?
Well, you see, it's not that I back it or I don't back it. What is that the Constitution say? Have they indeed absented themselves for 15 continuous sessions without the approval of the Speaker in terms of the Constitution? Who am I to say that I do not want to respect what the Constitution says. But when they go to the Privilege Committee and they are invited, then they can pray in all the law they know, and then a determination will be made.
But would this case go somewhere, as we say? I mean,
well, let's see how it goes, because the Privilege Committee will have to summon them. Now, look, there's a referral from the Speaker that we should investigate this matter. And on so they want you to come and start the interrogation. That is up to the chairman of the Privilege Committee. And that is how we have to look at it.
Right. Now, so Emefa, let me just add briefly that the Parliament has adjourned. They are going away for 6 weeks per the Speaker's ruling. When they resume sitting, 2 weeks after the resumption date, the Privileges Committee would have to furnish members of Parliament with the report on these 3 MPs for the House to take a decision on. So that these are the words of the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Babi.
So that's my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson reporting from Parliament. Now we can get to that interview that Evans Mensah had with the Minority Chief Whip Muttaka Mubarak. He starts by telling him that they would challenge the ruling of the Speaker with a substantive motion.
Well, you are a member of the... Okay, you challenged this?
Yes, we've said, and we are going to do it now.
In fact, you and Minority Leader both said same.
Yeah, we are challenging.
So you're coming by motion?
Yeah, substantive motion.
Okay, but you say you're rising. So
we are rising. So when the motion got to this office before we rise, that motion will have to be considered. So probably the privileges will not have to happen until that motion is...
Okay, so would that come back for a debate on the floor?
Obviously, that substantive motion will have to be debated and then agreed upon. If we
have
to
be voted, then
yeah,
there'll be a vote on it.
Because it's a substantive motion, and a decision the House have to decide whether they agree with us that we are disagreeing with Mr. Speaker and the method he used, or whether they agree with Mr. Speaker with the method that he used. So they will be voting.
Well, so according to Muttaka Mubarak, their decision to challenge the decision is to ensure fairness, especially for the Dom Kwabinya MP, Sarah Joasafo. He also does not believe that Ras Mubarak used the right channel to petition the Speaker.
You see, this matter of Joasafo, I think that there's a lot of unfair treatment to the lady. I'm reliably informed that she wrote leave of absence and her leadership refused to recommend it to Speaker.
Okay, Chairman Sabonsu told me that she applied for an additional 20 days that the Speaker rejected.
Listen, she wrote a leave of absence and then she traveled, citing her children and challenges. And the leadership, because they needed her at all costs, refused to recommend. So she noticed along the line that she's constantly being marked absent. So now she wrote a letter with another leave of absence directed to Mr. Speaker to remind them, Mr. Speaker, I'm supposed to seek permission from you, but the rules of this House is such that, like himself stated today, I have to pass it through my leadership. I have noticed that my leadership have consistently refused to recommend my leave of absence. So I'm writing directly to you.
So she bypassed her leadership?
Yeah, because she has done one with the leadership, and the leadership have refused to recommend. Now she writes this and stating this in the letter to Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, having gotten this, I cannot judge the thinking of Mr. Speaker. Minuted it back to her leadership. The same leaders that have refused to recommend her leave of absence, Speaker referred this matter to her leadership. And what the majority leader simply said was that, I'm not aware. And based on that, Speaker refuses to grant her leave of absence. With the greatest of respect to the office of Mr. Speaker, I think this is very unfair.
She disagrees that that's what happened. He said the Speaker by himself rejected that application for extension of absence.
Tell him that if he challenged that, that minute could be brought out. I sitting here, I put my family above everything. If I have a sick child, in seeking health care for my child, I'll put that as a priority to any other thing. She's talking about her children. And if she's not careful, social welfare in America will seize these children.
Did she say that in the application?
Yes. We cannot pretend to say that that's not a serious thing. Who doesn't know that Henry Kweti was not also well? So they might, and oversight not put in the application.
The Chief Justice Minister.
It's not well currently. I haven't seen anybody put leave of absence for him for a long period.
But isn't that why the Speaker has referred it to the privileges to make that determination?
That is why it has to be properly done.
But he's done it properly.
No, a member will have to do that.
But it's surprising because if the three, this is about vacating their seats.
Yeah.
They lose 3 seats. You should be happy.
I'm talking about fairness and equity. And as Mubarak,
I thought that NDC
as a member of parliament, if he really wanted this done, he knows what to do. Because he won't get any NDC member to canvass this for him.
Why?
Why? Why will we?
But it goes back to the point. You are going to gain 3 seats over them.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they'll lose 3, which is your gain.
Wait, you think that, I mean, Ajosafo's constituency is going to be an easy way to take?
So here's the thing. So you're afraid of a by-election?
No, I have canvassed that. Look, in my view, if by-election, if for one reason or the other a member of parliament seat is vacant, in my view, we should allow that party.
I've heard you canvass it, yeah.
Because of how dirty.
Acrimony. Yeah, it's more acrimonious than the main.
Well, there's more from this particular interview that will be airing tonight on PM Express. It's at 9 p.m. on the Joy News channel, also on all our social media platforms. There's more from that. We'll be talking about the end game for him with this referral by the Speaker to the Privileges Committee, and also hear from the Majority Leader, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu. He was asked specifically about her former Deputy Ajoasafo and what he thinks about her well-being, amongst others. We'll get to it shortly. But let me first bring in Ras Mubarak. He actually petitioned the Speaker of Parliament over this particular issue that has become very controversial today. You've been hearing the minority whip on this particular issue. We're grateful for your time here on Zoom. He's joining us via Zoom on Top Story. Mr. Mubarak, we're grateful for your time. Hello, Mr. Mubarak, you'd have to unmute so we can hear you.
Thank you, Emefa. Good evening, and good evening to your listeners.
Great to have you. So, first off, I would want to find out if you've received any official communication from the Speaker on your petition that we are now hearing that you did not use the right channel.
Well, I'm out of the country at the moment. I also picked up news of the referral to the Privileges Committee from the media when I woke up this morning in the States. You know, so there has not been any formal communications from Parliament except what has been reported in the media.
Well, at least there's some action as a result of that petition that you sent to Parliament. But as a former member of Parliament, we've been hearing from the minority whip, Muttaka Mubarak, in that interview, which is yet to be aired tonight on PM Express, that you did not go through the right channel, 1. 2, also, it opens the floodgate for all sorts of petition to the Speaker and Parliament for that matter, which poses a lot of danger. But as a former MP, did you actually use the right channel? He says you should have gone through an MP who would then table that petition in Parliament. You agree?
Let me commend the Speaker for the referral. And let me say that I am in total shock by the position of the Chief Whip and the Minority Leader, whose interests are the Minority Leader and the Chief Whip serving. Because this clearly cannot be a service of the public interest. And it's so disappointing, you know, that the official opposition party in our country, in a situation like this, when there is a collapse of trust in Parliament, when they are expected to be defending the Constitution, would take this outrageous position. I'm completely shocked. And as Evans put to the Chief Whip, what business have the opposition leader and the Chief Whip have in defending Sarah Ajoasafo? What business do they have in defending Sarah Ajoasafo? The rules of Parliament are clear, you know, that if an MP absents himself for more than 15 sittings of Parliament, the person ought to be referred to the Privileges Committee. The Constitution and the standing orders of Parliament are not clear as to who can make that referral. The law is in the bosom of the Speaker. And don't forget, we're talking about a Speaker who's been in Parliament for 28 years, you know, the longest serving Speaker in our country's history with enormous experience, okay? And we're talking about an issue that has to do with breaches in our Constitution. And you have an opposition leader and a minority chief whip take a position like this. serving whose best interest?
Well,
Emefa.
on the issue about serving whose best interest, that question, was posed to a minority chief whip. He reviews the backstory, which involves that Sarah Joasafo had to protect her children who are actually in the U.S. She risks losing them to the social welfare in the state that you are in now. And you best will understand why the minority is defending Joasafo. And for him also, there's an end game, ulterior motive by the majority side to actually, sacrifice Sarah Joasafo. They are just referring the two other MPs together with her just to exonerate them in the process, he says.
Three members of parliament have been referred to the privileges committee. Sarah Joasafo clearly has not been singled out. The Honorable Henry Korte, I had the speaker's ruling correctly. The Honorable Kennedy Japon and Sarah Joasafo, now they do have an opportunity to appear before the privileges committee to answer to why, the constitutional provisions should not be invoked, and MFA, people in parliament ought to be minded by the collapse of trust in the image of parliament. Can you imagine for a moment, a staff of Joy FM would absent themselves from work for more than 15 sittings of parliament, and they're talking about procedure? And when Parliament clearly has given an opportunity for them to appear before a privileges committee, to justify as to why, they shouldn't face the consequences. To be honest with you, I'm struggling to find the right words, to describe how outrageous such a position is.
Well, you petitioned, and we're here today. How hopeful are you about this Privileges Committee referral? We're also hearing from the majority leader saying that the report from the Privileges Committee should not be brought before the floor for debate. It should just be taken outright.
Well, clearly from the minority chief whip's position, he's going to help his members not to support the deliberations of the Privileges Committee. And if that were the route to be taken, then the NDC ought to take a serious decision as to who should lead the party in parliament. Because you just can't have an opposition party, seeking to be in government, not take an advantage to win back public trust, and to take a position like this, where even the ruling party members themselves are not even making these kinds of pronouncements.
Well, that pronouncement was made by the majority leader that the Privileges Committee's report should not be debated. It should just be taken. That's the majority side making that proposal.
Well, again, the rules are not clear. If you spoke to members of parliament, including lawyers, they would tell you there's one school of thought that believes that after the Privileges Committee's deliberations, it ought to come to plenary. There's another school of thought that believes that, well, once the Privileges Committee decides that they should be axed or not axed, that's the end of story. It's something for Parliament to decide, and I think Parliament is in capable hands, in terms of the Speaker steering affairs, to guide on which way is best, to look at this issue.
And briefly, before I let you off, 30 seconds, I'm really out of time. I'd want to find out from you how hopeful you are. You are the petitioner in all this, as they've been referred to the Privileges Committee.
I am hopeful. I am hopeful that and prayerful that members of the Privileges Committee of Parliament would put the fear of God and the love of country first, and not be guided by partisan considerations and by an attempt of a leadership, one group of, a section of the leadership that is completely out of touch with reality, to whip them into an opposite direction.
We're grateful for your time. That's Ras Mubarak, a former MP there. He actually petitioned the Speaker on these MPs and the absenteeism out there. But today, the three MPs have been referred to the Privileges Committee. Well, we've been hearing from the Minority Chief Whip on his concerns about why they've been challenging the Speaker's ruling. Well, we're told in the last few minutes there's a motion that has been filed by the minority. We'll get to hear details of that shortly. But the Minority Chief Whip, Muntaka Mubarak, has revealed that the majority is scheming to remove the Dom Kwabenya MP, Sarah Joasafo, and will let the other two MPs, Kennedy Ejapong and Henry Korte, off the hook.
That possibility is there. But that will make very difficult to defend for the committee on the floor. That 3 people commit about the same crime.
Yeah.
And then you say, oh, this one.
But the constitution is clear. The reasonableness of your reason for being absent.
And I say that
they've come to the determination that Adjusafo isn't reasonable, but those 2 are.
Well, so that's for them to determine.
So now we can hear the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, on last night's edition of PM Express. Some interesting revelations he made when it comes to Adjusafo, his former deputy majority leader. Listen.
Well, she requested from the speaker to be given 4 more weeks to be absent. The 4 weeks, I guess, is ending Friday.
Was that approved? Was that granted?
It wasn't granted. The speaker told me that he had not granted that. Because you need to be here to make the requests. But this was submitted from our side. And even the first one that saw her out, she didn't make any request from the speaker. So the speaker said, you're only going to accommodate that. My own information was that even last Tuesday, the speaker was going to make a pronouncement on it in the House. I think the circumstances prevented him from so doing. I want to believe that perhaps before the House adjourns, tomorrow or maybe next week when the House sets, the Speaker may make the announcement by referring her conduct to the Privileges Committee before we adjourn. Because that's the information that the Speaker gave to me. And so I thought he was going to do that. And by whatever circumstances that evolved, he elected not to do that. So I want to see what the Speaker does in the coming days.
But for certain, that's what you expect to happen now? Referral to the privileges for consideration?
I'm relating to what the Speaker told you. As to whether it's going to roll out.
As a majority leader yourself, what do you want? What do you expect? You are her majority leader.
Well, it's been a long drawn matter. We've been having conversations, and I think there's something that is happening. There's something that is happening, and I don't want to go into it. Unfortunate as the situation is, but certainly a decision will have to be taken.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
The Constitution is clear what decision can be taken on this.
Absolutely.
Privileges. That's what I'm asking, whether it is your preference too, as a majority leader, that apply the constitutional provision.
Well, really, one would say that push in this case has come to shove. And where push comes to shove, some decision, some determination has to be made. And so I agree with the Speaker. If that determination has been made, that referral has to be made. It has to be made.
I mean, you still have 2 years, 2.5 years to go. Can you do with all this challenge that has proven? In fact, it has to be said, without her, the e-levy had struggled a bit. You have to admit that. If you had her on your side on the House, you probably would have done this long before on Tuesday. You agree?
We have been limping.
Yeah.
I must admit. If she were here, this hurdle would have been cleared long, long ago. Unfortunately. She's not here. We've been having conversations about her coming back, and she promised and, renege on many occasions. But I think it's not right. It's not right. How to go forward with it is the bigger burden. Yeah.
Does she need help? Based on what you know, you worked with her. She was your deputy. Does she need help? I mean, because from outside, a lot of speculation. Does she genuinely need help?
I wouldn't want to comment on that. Except to say that things are not normal.
Okay. With her?
things are not normal.
That's the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, today in that interview with Evans Mensah. Remember, you can't miss PM Express tonight. He has another exclusive interview with Mutaka Mubarak, the minority chief whip. Newsnight starts now.
Mr. Speaker, that certainly is not good account of the immediate past president. President John Dramani Mahama has not attended any of the 7 events.
We'll hear from him and get some reactions. Also, Asin North MP James Jachikwe Singh to know his fate in Parliament as Supreme Court sets April 13 to determine whether he can continue to perform legislative duties there. We have details of that. Planned 15% increase in transportation fares by the Ghana Private Roads and Transport Union put on hold for the second time in 2 weeks following government's appeal to the GPRTU.
Nothing less than